Hello summoners and welcome back to another video. My name is Saskio and today I'll be talking about the most optimal settings to have when you are trying to climb in League of Legends. This video will be both useful for beginners and intermediate players, so let's hop right into it. So starting off with hotkeys, whether you're a beginner or you are an intermediate player, you'll always want to quick cast. So here are the differences. When you normal cast, you will click your ability, let's say in this case my Q for Nidalee, and this will pop up. Then you have to manually click with your mouse to shoot the ability. But by then that's very slow, right? So what quick cast does is that allows you to immediately shoot it. So when I click Q, it shoots the ability instead of having that indicator, then manually clicking it with my mouse. Even if you're a beginner, I highly suggest you switch to quick cast immediately because it makes things a lot more efficient, and that's how all professional players play. So as soon as possible, make sure you switch that over so that you can start shooting your abilities a lot faster. Next up, we have these indicators down here. So this is personal preference. So as you can see here, replace quick cast with indicator. So what this does is, normally you'd shoot an ability. In this case, I shot my Q with quick cast. But if you turn it on, and I click Q, it will give this indicator right here. However, I don't have to click with my mouse now. I just have to let go of the Q button, and it will shoot the spear for me. So that's personal preference. For me, I don't have this turned on because it's another deterrent, and it slows down how fast my abilities can be outputted, so I personally have it turned off. And then I have this option turned off too. Let's hop into the hotkeys. So, down in the hotkeys, the only thing I have changed is quick cast, quick plus self cast, spell number 2 and spell number 3. So this button right here is the tilde key. It is above tab and number 1. And spell number 3 is your E. I have it bound to mouse button 3. So when I simply click my mouse scroll wheel, it will use that ability. And the reason why I have it attached to these two is because mainly for the E, for example, when I'm playing Nidalee, right? I'm trying to run away. I don't want to run away. Let's say I'm trying to run away. I jump, switch to human form. I don't want to manually move my mouse over my character to heal, because then I might maybe slow down, I might make mistakes, and I might have been focusing on another target with my mouse, and I have to move too many times. So what I would do instead is I would switch to human form, and then I would click my mouse button to heal. So I don't have to drag my mouse all the way on top of my character to use my E in this case. So this was a very specific change that I made so that I can play Nidalee a lot more smoothly. And naturally over time, I kind of just started playing every single champion I own now with mouse button 3. So I'll sometimes click E, but very occasionally when you see me in actual games on my streams, regardless of what champion I play, I'm probably using mouse button 3. And you might actually even sometimes notice me, whenever I use my E, my screen might go in because I'm maybe misclicking and moving my screen forward. So this one's personal preference, but that's my explanation on why I put quick self-cast there. And let's scroll down here. And the only other important key to worry about in this case is target champions only. I believe this key isn't applied when you first start the game. You have to apply it yourself. So many pro players will put this target champions only on the tilde key, which is what I use for my quick cast W. Remember, it's the key above tab and the key to the left of number 1. Or you can put it on T, since you don't really use T for anything useful in the game. And what this does is, when you click this button, you cannot click anything else. So right here in this case, I'm holding T. Oh, that targets a champion. But right here, I'm trying to click the Scuttle Crab, but it's not working because I have target champions only. But when I turn it off, I'll be able to hit it. And how this would be useful for you is when you're diving the enemy bot tower or top tower, if the enemy champion starts hiding in the corner right here, or for bot lane, they start hiding over here, there's a very high chance that you might misclick the tower instead of hitting the champion, and you might end up actually losing the kill or even dying. And it's happened to me a lot, so having this key enabled, especially when you're playing ADC, even top lane, jungle, and mid, even support I guess in this case, very useful to be able to make sure you get that auto off. so you don't misclick or anything. But I also personally have it targeted targeted to the emote wheel. So that's me personally. If you ever watch my gameplay, I don't use this key. I'm not trying to go pro anymore. But if you're trying to become a better League of Legends player, you should be using this key. So let's move on. There's nothing really useful in items unless you want to maybe target a specific person. Player movement doesn't have really anything crazy on it. Camera control. Sometimes you can do select ally. So what this will do is if you click, you will pan your camera to that champion. So I believe it'll work here in this custom tool. No, it doesn't. But essentially, people generally set this to F1, F2, F3, F4. And you may watch players like Faker on stream where they will be pushing mid lane and then they'll start moving through the jungle and then their camera will just start flying all over the place. And that's essentially these 4 buttons right here. And personally, I don't use this too much because I generally just look at the minimap. But if you're a person that likes to see what your teammates are seeing and seeing the minion wave state and you're able to process that information, then go ahead and set these keys up to F1, F2, F3, F4, and you should be good to go. Continuing on, we have display. There's nothing important here. Communication. There's nothing really important here. I have a space bar bound to laugh so that when I play in Italy and I get away from someone, I'm able to taunt them like this with my space bar. It's up to you if you want to apply this or not, but I put it on space bar. On top of that, I'm able to do some cool animation cancels where, for example, a Nidalee jump would look like this. But if you press spacebar at the same time, your jump is the animation changes a little bit. And some people get a little they question how'd you do that, whatever, and then you can say it's a secret, but there's nothing really crazy to it. It doesn't change the actual way that the game plays out. So continuing on, we have menus. There's nothing really important here. Item shop, I just use P to buy items. Practice tool, this doesn't matter. And finally down here, there's bind auto tack to left click. So your left click, normally you shouldn't have this binded, but some people do. If you just click, nothing happens, right? But if you turn it on, you will start moving around. And it's just a attack move, which I don't actually use myself, so I don't mess with the button. So I don't recommend anyone use that button unless you have a really in-depth attack move guide. Moving on, let's go to video. Play on your best resolution. Play on full screen. I personally play on borderless because I like to alt tab a lot, because when you alt tab on full screen, things become very slow. However, the reason why you want to play on full screen is because full screen makes the game a lot more smoother, a slight amount over borderless. I don't know why, that's just the case. So if you're in a very important match or a very important solo queue game and you know you won't be tabbing out, make sure you switch to full screen. But me personally, I don't really care about winning too much anymore, so I just play borderless, so I'm able to alt tab very often. Next up for colorblind mode, I believe this just changes the color. I actually have no clue. I just play with this on. I know most pro players play with it on, so I guess you can just turn it on. Next up, hide eye candy. This just makes the game run a little bit smoother, but if you have it turned on, as you can see, there's like a waterfall going over here, but if you turn it off, I believe the waterfall goes away. So that's a eye candy. If you don't have a great computer, you should definitely have this toggled. Use relative team colors, I have turned off. And enable screen shake, I have turned off. Next up, going over to graphics. I just play with very low everything. So the reason why this has happened is because back in the day when I first started playing the game, I had a Mac. And it was like 30 FPS when there was no minions on the map. And then when minions came on the map and champions were using abilities, I dropped to 2 FPS. So the best thing I could do was just play very low settings. So on that day onwards, I just played very low settings. I eventually even got onto the LCS stage to play my collegiate matches, and I would still play very low settings. So I know a lot of pro players use different things, but just to keep the game simple, I just run very low. I have tried switching to very high, but my eyes do start hurting after I play a little while because I'm just so used to very low settings. So I highly recommend very low. It's up to you. It increases your FPS if you don't have the best computer. Even if you have the best computer in the world, it still makes the game very simple, so there's less things you need to worry about. Next up, character inking, turn this off, it's very bad. Anti-aliasing, vertical sync, all very bad settings. I'm very confident in any other game you play, Apex Legends, Warzone, you have this stuff turned off. Next up, very important, frame rate cap. So, most people will cap it at 144, some people are on 60 hertz. I put it on 200 because if I put it on 144, I don't want my FPS dropping to 143, 142 randomly. However, I did personally talk to a Riot Games referee on LCS stage. 1 second. And he explained to me that if you actually play above 200 FPS to 240, then your screen actually starts tearing a little bit. It's very hard to explain. It doesn't literally tear, but if you play it at the highest level, you'll notice that sometimes there'll be some very weird lags for like half a second, because the game does League of Legends is capped at 144, and it's trying to keep up with what your computer wants to do, but it can't. So if you're running 240 hertz, which a lot of people are running nowadays for the smoothest computer experience, cap it to 200 or 144, and you should have a much smoother time playing the game. Personally, I'm on 144 hertz right now. I will be switching to 240 soon. So I'm just playing 200 FPS. But when I switch to my 240 hertz monitor, I'll probably go back to 144 FPS for in-game. So just a huge disclaimer there. Just try it out, see what happens, and you should be good. Now let's try uncap for a second. I go to 600. Oh, my game isn't tearing, so we're good. Okay. Oh, my game teared there for a second. Yeah, right there. You guys see the tearing? That's example of tearing. It happens at a lesser rate when you're at 240, but it does happen. So I cap mine at 200. So next up we have accessibility, color level, gamma. This just you can play with this however you want. This is personal preference. There's one player in the pro scene named Insanity. I think he plays for Immortals. He runs some really weird colors because he's colorblind. So if you're colorblind, you can play around with these settings. Personally, I don't mess with them. I just leave them at 50, 50, 50. But if you're someone who likes to play with the color, or you have some issues or whatever, then you should definitely check out these options and play around with them to match what you like. Next up, let's go into sound. So for sound, this is personal preference on how your sounds are in your Windows settings, if you use Voice Meter Banana or whatever. I personally just like my sound settings really low, just enough to hear everything. But you need to play League of Legends with sound because there are some things that you need for indication. Mainly, for example, Kled ultimate. If a Kled ults, you can't see it if they're in fog, but you can hear it. Same as Scion ultimate. So you need this turned on so you're able to hear that. Otherwise, you'll be at a massive disadvantage when playing against those two specific champions. And sound can be used really easily for a lot of other abilities from enemy champions, so it's very important to have it on. The only thing you need to turn off is the music volume. This is very useless unless you like the music volume, but otherwise I personally have it turned off. And then the music volume goes hand in hand with updated and classic, so if you are into the music volume, then you can have it turned on and play around with these two options, see what you like. If your computer is very slow, I would recommend maybe even disabling your sound and playing at that disadvantage, because you might have a bit better performance if you do turn off your sound. So sound is ultimately up to you. The only thing I have here is music volume off. Next up, let's move to interface. Very important stuff here. So starting off with HUD scale. So I personally play with 100 HUD scale. If you play with 1, this is what it looks like. A lot of people suggest you play with 1 HUD scale or even 0 because it gives you more space and more room to work with. As you can see down here, I'm able to click here now, and I just see a lot more on my screen. So if you aren't used to it, then you should stick to that, but I'm personally very used to 100, and as you can see, I can't really see anymore. If I'm playing lock screen and there's an enemy champion down here, I might not be able to see them. But I'm just very used to 100 scale. I recommend playing on 50 or even 1 if you can manage that. But otherwise, you can go with 100 if you want to be like me. Next up, cursor scale. I just go on 50. Personal preference, as you can see here. It's all you. Next up, shop scale. I just scaled it down by 5. This is the shop scale. If I do it to 100, This is now the shop scale. A lot bigger, right? I just do 45 to call it a day. You can do whatever you want. Chat scale, you can change it to whatever you want. When you're typing, boom, up to you what you want. I like to see it at 100 because maybe one of my teammates type in important key timers, and I like to be able to see that. Next up, minimap scale, I do 28. You can do whatever you want. So this is the 100 minimap scale. This is 0. I go 28, personal preference. The bigger it is, the less information you have, as you can see. If oh, there you go. This is this is 100 right here, and yeah. So this is your personal preference. Do whatever you want there. If you want to be like me, you can do 28. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. All right, now down to health and resource bars. So show health bars. You have to have this turned on in League of Legends unless you're a content creator doing a video without health bars. I have show loss of control UI on. I turn off enable HUD animations. This means, as you can see here, my HP 572.95. It's still. If you turn it on, it now starts moving, and that could lower FPS maybe by a little bit. So I just personally have it turned off, so it's still, and there's no distractions of anything moving down there. Show health bar animations I have turned off. So I like summoner names on top of people's names. Some people do champion names. So in this case, I would have Nidalee over my name, but I like summoner name, so the Saskio. Some people have none. I personally like summoner name, but it's your personal preference. Next up, screen flash on damage I have turned off. Screen flash on loss control I have turned off. Champion highlight on camera center, I never used that, but essentially that button is initially attached to your spacebar, but I changed that to laugh, as I explained earlier. So essentially when you click that button, there'll be a big arrow above your champion. And it might make it easier for some people who are newer to the game to see their champion, see where their champion are in fights, but you'll never see me use this use this in a game because I don't have camera center applied to anything. I just have it all applied to Y, which allows me to unlock and lock my camera. Next up, enable legacy cursor. This is the new cursor. I like the old one, so this is me. Personal preference. Always show extended tooltip info and show enemy information tooltips. Turn this off. The only time you would have this on is, let's say you want to smite Baron, right? You want to smite Baron, and you hover over Baron. So let's skip ahead here and spawn the Baron. Spawn Baron. Oh. Apparently I can't click it. But anyways, what this button does essentially is when you are hovering over a, well, most importantly when I see it is when you're hovering over a objective or whatever. I think it's bugged right now. You will see a massive thing pop up. So for example, the honey fruit, as you can see here, this pops up when you hover over it because you have these things turned on. Same as Baron. Some people like to have it on, but I personally think it's really annoying when I'm doing camps or whatever. It just pops up when I'm hovering my mouse over. I dislike it. So I like to have it turned off so nothing just pops up. But it could be very useful for beginners who are just trying to learn the game. But for the most part, I think you should just turn it off immediately and just get used to the game naturally from there. Next up, show target frame on attack. I think I have that turned off. I think that just creates a frame over whatever you're hovering or whatever you're trying to attack. Next, I have enable line missile display. So what this means is when you click your abilities, let's say you have Quickcast and you want to click your abilities, which sometimes I personally do, you'll get this display right here. Whereas if you turn it off, you'll get this display. So I like to have this turned on because I do occasionally sometimes click my ability manually and try to get a very precise ability usage. So that's why I have it turned on. Next, show attack range. This only works if you A-click, I believe. But yeah. And then right here, if I A-click, you don't see it anymore. But I don't A-click, so it's up to you. Disable HUD spell click. So what this does is it means you can't click this. So right now I'm clicking my Q, nothing happens. If I turn it back on, I can click my Q and use it. Next, show spell cost. So I believe this is naturally checked off. You should turn this on. because as you can see here, let's say I'm using a lot of mana, right? I don't know how much it costs to use these abilities unless I really read into it. But sometimes you're in the middle of a fight, you can't calculate that. You can't hover over it and see how much mana it will use. So by having this turned on, you already see the mana here, 50, 40, 50. And let's say you have like 100 mana, you know you have probably 2 spells from this rotation. You can use Q or E. So have show spell cost on, because I know Riot Games doesn't check that automatically for you. Next up, ability cooldown display, minutes plus seconds or none, or even minutes. So mainly this applies to both summoner spells and ultimates because they have the longest cooldown. So right now I just flash. As you can see, I have my flash in 4 minutes and 55 seconds. Some people like minutes plus seconds, some people like seconds. I don't know anyone who plays with none. Some people do just minutes, but the most precise and easiest thing to calculate is minutes and seconds. Right here, I can say, hey guys, I have flash in 4 minutes and 35 seconds. That's very easy. Whereas if you have minutes on, you can just be like, oh, I only have 4 minutes. Like, you don't know exactly, right? Seconds, you're not going to be like, yeah, I have my flash in 267 seconds. No one can do the math in their brain in a very intense situation. So keep it simple and go minutes plus seconds, and you will be good to go. Next up for minimap, show neutral camps and show minimap allow minimap movements. So neutral camps essentially means you can see what camps are available. You must have this turned on when playing League of Legends, in my opinion. Allow minimap movement means you can click the minimap to move around, as you can see here, which I use very often, so I have it turned on. But if you turn it off, you cannot click anything.
Your turret has been destroyed.
Show minimap on left is personal preference. I like it on the right because that is the natural place that Riot Games put it, and I got used to that. So up to you if you want to do that. Next up, scoreboard. So the scoreboard will look like this if you have my options. Mirror scoreboard layout. If you turn it on. Oh no, well, it only works when you have 5 people in the game, but it's up to you. I have it turned off. I prefer it that way. And I like show summoner names. So here you see Saskiolol. I think if you turn it off, it'll be gone. So I like to associate the names with the champions. Show team frames on left. So this is very useful for champions like Soraka and Shen. So your team frames will be above your minimap. When you have 4 other teammates, it'll be 1, 2, 3, and 4 right here above the minimap. However, if you have show team frames on left, it will be showed here 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is very important for specific champions like Shen and Soraka, because sometimes in intense situations, let's say you're playing Shen and you're a champion that essentially clicks somebody and you ult to them, right? But however, all around this area, your teammates are all bunched up. You might misclick someone and you just don't know like when you should click your abilities. You can simply go to your frames and then click your ultimate to heal, to shield them and teleport to them, right? So there's 0 chance of misclicking. So this is a very important thing to click, to have on. So it's personal preference. Do you want it on the left or do you want it above the minimap? I like it above the minimap. So when I'm playing Shen or Soraka, Soraka mainly for the heal, I will occasionally use that when team fights get really hectic and everyone starts bunching up a lot. Then I will use that to make sure I don't misclick. So moving on, we have chat. This is personal preference. The only important thing here is to show timestamps. You can show all chat, you can show ally chat. It's a pretty toxic game. Up to you, personal preference. But timestamps are very important because let's say Sivir used exhaust here, right? 28:16. You can calculate the time here off of that timestamp. Or if you're very lazy and you don't calculate timers, then you can at least see. So let's say I ping Nidalee's flash 28:25, right? I'll know, okay, so around 33:25, Nidalee flash will be back up, right? Because when you ping an enemy summoner spells, it doesn't give the timer on when they used it. It just pings it. So then you'd be able to time it yourself. And without timestamps, like you can't time anything. You just see that they used it, right? So timestamps is very important, regardless of what role you are, to know who used summoners, when they likely used it, and you're able to calculate it from there. Next up, we have emote bubble display. I have it turned off. I have mute enemy emotes turned on, and emote size normal. So this stuff doesn't really matter. Next up, I believe this is the Riot Games auto check, but everything is very important to have turned on. Everything is very important. So make sure you have everything turned on, mana and experience, so that you know how much you're using, and you should be good. So moving on to game. Mouse speed is personal preference. Camera move speed with the mouse is personal preference. So what this means is I have it at 50. So right here, this is 50 movement speed right here when you move it. And if you have it turned on higher, it'll move faster. I just have it on 50. I don't use camera move speed with the keyboard, but some people like to. I personally don't. But yeah, moving on, we have here, let's reset the game. Okay. So moving on, we have move camera on revive. So what this means is when you respawn into the game, if you were watching a team fight happen over here, and then you respawn, your camera will immediately pan back to your character. That's what happens when you have this on. This could be disadvantageous sometimes when you're playing something like Draven or Ezreal or Ashe, who have cross-map abilities, or even Senna. And let's say you're watching a fight and you are about to respawn and you want to use your ultimate to try to snipe a kill. If your camera pans to your champion, you'll have to unlock your camera and pan back. And by that time, you might lose vision of someone. You might be too late to shoot your abilities. Because time is of the essence when you're trying to shoot abilities like that. So keep that in mind when you have it turned on. I personally have it turned on. You can turn it off if you want to, if you're concerned about that case, because that will happen when you are playing those champions. So your call. I just like to have it turned on. Enable smooth camera. I believe this is when you move your camera with your keyboard. I think it's just a lot more smoother. I think. I don't use it, so I don't have it turned on. I don't know what mouse button drag scroll is. Next, we have fixed offset. So I like fixed offset because this locks your camera on your champion. If you go per side, now it does some weird like thing where my champion's on the side. Semi-locked. I think it locks depending on where you lock it. So those are all very confusing. I just use fixed offset, so my champion's always in the middle when I do pan back to my lock my camera. So I recommend having fixed offset. Next up, auto attack means when your champion doesn't have anything to auto attack, and it was previously auto attacking, it will try to auto attack something. So you can simply stop that by holding S, or you can turn it off. I personally have it turned on. Next up, use movement prediction. I have this turned off. I know Faker, which is SKT1 Faker, he has this turned on because he likes that weird movement. So this is what movement prediction looks like when I'm moving back and forth. So that is movement prediction right there. Faker likes that. I have it turned off. This is what my movement looks like now. So, personal preference, your call on if you want to use it or not. Treat target champion only as a toggle. I talked about the target champion only. If I were to use the button, I have to hold it so I can use it. But you can have it so you just have to click it once, and then you have to click it again to deactivate it. Your call. I don't use target champion only. I'm not trying to become the best at the game anymore, so yeah. And this one, I just have turned on. So I believe those are all the most important settings that I have covered. And that should be all. Thank you very much for watching this video, and have a good day.